everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma.
And Professor Aubrey.
Hooray!
Yay!
How have you been doing?
I've been great. How have you been, Tim?
Been doing really well.
Are you enjoying the pandemic so far?
Yeah. I mean, somebody posted a comment on Twitter that was actually my feelings encapsulated. It's like introverted people's idea of a quarantine, and it was like a llama prancing to like his pen, and it was like, yeah, that's me.
That's how I've been feeling as well. I have been surprisingly lonely, though.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think there's something about knowing that at any point I could have seen people before the self-imposed social distancing. There's something about knowing there were people out there I could see that felt good, and now feeling like, oh, definitely can't see anybody, was making me feel a little bit lonely, which I was surprised about because I am like such an introvert.
Yeah.
But I've adjusted, I think, and I'm pretty happy with things.
I think you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the end time when we transition back to being in society is going to be way harder for me than the transitioning to the quarantine has been.
Yeah. Sadly, it looks like Kim, her grandmother, is currently being tested for the coronavirus. As of right now, the results are not in yet, but grandmother's 93, lives in a nursing home. It seems like she has all the symptoms, and right now they have her on oxygen, but the oxygen is like at the max of what they can give. Apparently, some good news in terms of her grandmother is that, her grandmother is awake and, talking, and apparently is upset that she's not eating as much as she wants. So, I mean, that's good news there, but that's still scary to go through. So, with anybody, and I know my grandmother back in Michigan, her nursing home is in complete lockdown, so no visitors whatsoever. They'll gladly take phone calls and all that stuff, but and also e-cards. But I've never been one for cards. I don't get the concept of cards. I mean, like, how does it show you care by going to the store, spending $2 and just writing your name in something and giving it that?
Wow, I really disagree about the cards. But first of all, I'm sorry to hear about Kim's grandmother. That's very sad, and hopefully Kim's doing okay. But cards can really show people that you care about them, I think, really. That, like, instead of just calling or texting or emailing, that you cared enough to either make or pick out something that made you think of them and communicate something to them in writing. I think it's so rare these days that it does actually mean more.
And I'm not against cards per se. For me, it would mean more if somebody like made one.
Sure.
Then the effort it takes into that, then yeah, I'd appreciate that. But just to me, it's just my feelings. I've always been wacky about cards. I mean, I know previous relationships I've had, I've had partners buy cards, and I'm like, great. And they're like, bitch. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure that happens so often in your relationships.
That
you got called a bitch.
Yeah, I got stories. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but that's a different story for a different day. But anyway,
anywho,
on to the business at hand. We had a debate.
We did.
Yesterday.
We had a Democratic debate between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, in which Joe Biden said that he would choose a woman as his vice presidential running mate. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting declaration on Joe's part. And it was interesting that Bernie didn't say the same thing, which I could kind of understand and actually appreciate, because for me, Joe Biden saying, I'm going to have a woman running mate, just kind of felt like pandering, yeah. Being thrown a bone. Because I really think, and maybe this is what Bernie was thinking is that I think the most qualified available person should be the vice presidential running mate. Just like I think the most qualified available person should be the presidential nominee. Unfortunately, we've seen that did not happen.
Yeah, we've got a bad track record these past 20 years of not having the most qualified people getting the job.
Yeah. So, and for me, that was Elizabeth Warren, right? Was the most qualified available person. She clearly did not do well in the primaries.
I mean, to me, Bernie Sanders running again really undercut, the chance that she had, because I do feel it's important for the Democratic Party to embrace progressive ideals. The 90s Democratic way of doing things, the status quo of the Democratic Party, the Clinton way of doing things. And the reason I mentioned Clinton, because if you are familiar with politics over the past 30 or so years, I mean, Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, was head of an organization in the Democratic Party that essentially co-opted some Republican talking points into the Democratic platform, thus making them more electable, which for the 90s was great, but that was the 90s. What worked then does not work now, especially with, Republican economic points really widening the gap between, the rich and the poor. So, on the one hand, I do agree with you. Yeah, in a perfect world, the best person for the job should be the one getting that job, whether it's president or vice president. On the other hand, I do think, if you think about it, right now Joe Biden is, whether it's against Bernie in the Democratic primary or polls against him and Trump, this is the first time that someone who's actually been in a lead has said that they would have a female on the ticket as well. Walter Mondale in the 80s was never in the lead. John McCain, look how that turned out. Now we got Sarah Palin on The Masked Singer of all things. My God.
I had no idea.
Yeah, spoilers. But, this... sometimes... I don't know. I think short term, yeah, it sucks that, that the best person is not getting vetted and, whoever that person may be. But I think long term, it's one of those deals that if people see that the world will not explode if a woman is in a position of high political power in this country, I think come 2024, I think more people will be, receptive to, considering a woman for president.
Well, that may be true. I mean, I think the most important thing right now is, for me, is to beat Trump. So if having a woman running mate actually interfered with beating Trump, I would be against it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's frustrating me a little bit about some political discourse, whether it's, just generic, random people on Twitter or stuff I see on Facebook. People are getting caught up in the primary process of, they want to, it's great to want to support your candidate. It's great to, be passionate about your candidate, but look who we have in the White House now. This is not, John Kerry versus George W. Bush. I mean, for as bad as George W. Bush was, he still was pretty much status quo for what you expect a politician to do, in terms of, if a big pandemic hit, I think Bush would have probably done a lot more right things compared to, what we're currently facing now. But we got to get Trump out. I mean, after that, then you can have your petty squabbles and, be more, ideologically pure. But in order for us to fix the mess because that's another thing too. I mean, I read an article that Mitch McConnell is sending feelers out to judges that were appointed by Reagan and both Bushes and telling them that if you are planning to retire, do it now. Voting is important. So even if you are a diehard Bernie Sanders supporter, if Biden gets that nomination, you gotta vote for Biden. You know, because you know, in the past too, there have been times where I've supported third-party candidates, and you know, if somebody truly feels that a third-party candidate represents what they want in a politician, then they should have no qualms in voting for that. But look who we have now. This is the one time that people should just, you know, hold their nose if they have to and vote to get Trump out. Then you can work towards making sure for 2024 the candidate you prefer is in a better spot.
Absolutely. I agree with that, Tim.
Totally agree.
I totally agree with you.
100%.
Something like that.
Yeah, you know, when you dish wisdom like I do on this show on a weekly basis, hey. Yeah, I mean, dishing wisdom, and then last week I'm doing Mickey Mouse impressions, you know.
You're just so flexible.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on.
Let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah, with the coronavirus hitting as it did, and since our current government decided to not do anything about it because it could potentially hurt, you know, that jackass's poll numbers if they, you know, couldn't be hurt anything more. I mean, we're facing something I never thought I would ever see in this country. I mean, and that's essentially, this country is going on lockdown quickly. And one thing that's coming up really quick that, you know, wrestling fans are aware of is Wrestlemania 36. And there's a real chance that that it may either be canceled, postponed. You know, there's talk of moving it to their performance center. They have a center in Orlando, Florida, where they train, you know, up and comers. And this past Friday on their Fox show SmackDown, they had an empty arena show. And you know, there's word that if, you know, WrestleMania is to go on, they would do it in the performance center. So it would be weird, you know, that they, you know, plan for this big massive football stadium type show to have it in like a really small like warehouse essentially, with nobody there.
Did you watch the SmackDown?
I watched clips on YouTube and it was really awkward. Just, I mean, wrestling depends so much on fans, you know, that to see them perform without fans, it was just jarring. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's, and I'm kind of conflicted about the WrestleMania thing too. I mean, on the one hand, you know, public safety should always, you know, trump everything else. Pardon the pun. But on the other hand, I you know, I think back, and you know, entertainment is a great escape for people, especially in times like this. I mean, speaking of wrestling, I think back to September 13th, 2001. And you're like, what happened then?
Well, it was 2 days after September 11th.
It was. And the SmackDown at that point was on UPN. And SmackDown actually aired live. It was the first public gathering of that size, you know, after the attacks. I mean, because essentially things after September 11th kind of shut down to kind of what, you know, we're experiencing somewhat now. Just it's just a lot more. It was just, people were just in shock and, you know, staying at home watching the news. But the great thing about that episode was the fact that it allowed an escape. You know, just for those 2 hours that show was on, you know, because every, you know, on that day, for like weeks afterwards, like every channel had the news just nonstop, and just, you know, just seeing that tragedy over and over again, just being able to escape for 2 hours in the silly world of pro wrestling meant a lot. So seeing the fact that WrestleMania, the yearly event, could possibly be postponed or canceled or whatever is, you know, should it? You know,
definitely, for sure, it should, Tim.
It should be canceled.
It should be canceled. I mean, at this point, We have no March Madness. We have no NBA.
No XFL.
We have no XFL, which,
super important, right?
Everybody's shows have been canceled, live shows, dance nights have been canceled, the things that people care about, and you happen to care about wrestling. And so you're like, this would be really important for people who care about wrestling. But pretty much everybody has lost their thing that they care about. Whether that was like I was telling you, my karaoke night that we do every month, we're not doing it this month, and that would be great for me. It would really raise my spirits and make me feel awesome to be able to karaoke with my friends. But obviously I'm not going to do that because the karaoke place is closed, number one. But number two, it wouldn't be good for public health for people to be getting together in rooms like that and sharing microphones to sing karaoke. So I think everybody's got their things that they have to give up, and some are harder than others, and it just doesn't make sense for people to be getting together in hot, steamy Florida to...
and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that, because even if they did, try to have the show go on, for a show like Wrestlemania, you got people coming in from all over the world, but with the travel ban currently in place, that's more than half their audience gone right away, and just, the chance to...
So why not just postpone it until it can be done the way that it should be done, I guess is what I would say.
In a perfect world, yeah. If I were running the WWE, that would be the plan. But, Vince McMahon has a bug up his craw about, having WrestleMania done at a certain time. And, on the one hand, I can kind of see his point, because if you have a business and there's one event that happened once a year that was the biggest money draw for your company, seeing that, have that potentially go away for a year could, really, really negatively affect your business, no matter how big or small it is. But on the other hand...
and we're seeing that happen to everybody too. When I'm friends with DJ Angeli and the Incredible Kid on Facebook, they're awesome couple of DJs here in Portland, and they were pointing out that they do their gigs. That's what they make their money doing is gigging around Portland and other places, and they're not going to be able to do that at all. So their big dance nights where they make the most money, those have been canceled.
No bar mitzvahs.
And they were actually thinking about doing a live stream, like you pay a certain amount, you can get a live stream of their night and dance at home to DJ Angeli and the Incredible Kid, which I think would be awesome.
Well, an idea I had, if they're going to do it at the Performance Center, it's a contained place, everybody's tested before, all the employees are tested beforehand, so, there's not that big of a fear that if they held it at the Performance Center with no audience there, that, it would not be a public health risk, but what they could do is essentially set up screens in the audience and have, to your point, have kind of fans like Skype in and virtually be members of the audience in the show. It would be a different atmosphere. There would still be one thing they would have to be scared of is people throwing up swear words or just being stupid because welcome to America. But I do people need escapes, and it's important for those escapes to occur if they have the ability to do so. So I'm conflicted on it. To your point, they shouldn't have it in a big football stadium because one, more than likely people will not be there, but just they would not be able to control, the potential health risks. But the show going on, I think would do well to kind of give some fans the escape that they need, and think about movies. Movies lately are, movie theaters are shutting down because they have to, but Universal Studios, they announced today that some of their movies that are currently in theaters now, like some of the Blumhouse horror movies like The Hunt and whatnot, plus the new version of Emma, they're actually releasing them to video on demand.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it'd be like $19.99, but
I would pay that to see Emma.
Yeah,
I've been desperate to go see Emma. but of course not going because of the public health
Yep.
issues.
But this Friday you'll be able to watch that, and I think this when it comes to the movie thing will be a big test, because I think a lot of people, like take families for instance, they don't want to, you don't want, if you go see Emma, would you be happy if like a couple brought in 3 kids like 5 years or younger to go see that movie? No, you wouldn't. You'd be upset because the kids would be making noise and whatnot. But for parents that do have kids, being able to spend that little extra $20 to have a date night at home, because with entertainment equipment being what it is, you're going to get a comparable, if not better, experience depending on the types of movie theaters you have in your town. Watching it at home. I mean, you're going to get a better screen quality if you got like surround sounds are relatively cheap, so you're going to be able to get that. But just escapes are important.
Escapes are important, and I think another thing that this topic is bringing up is the idea that the restrictions that we're currently experiencing are actually like sort of birthing new ideas about how to deliver content, and some of those ideas might outlive the crisis, right? Like if things are successful in being delivered in new ways, maybe that's how we'll have those options going forward. Things that we never would have tried had we not, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
Yeah, and especially with movies, I think people have to accept the fact that movie theaters, as we know them, over the next 10, 20 years, it's going to be a lot different experience, just because it's not going to be financially feasible for, people to continually go out and watch all these big blockbuster movies. But does everybody necessarily need to go to the theaters to see that? Like I mentioned with, your electronic equipment today, you can get a comparable, if not better, experience at home. And, I love the movies, and I don't think movie theaters are going to go away. But yeah, I think for the average consumer, it's going to open up a lot more, a lot more money, profits for the movie theaters if they do go that route.
Right on.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you have some ideas on stuff people can watch. Now, our previous episode, Kim had, some ideas for that people can watch, if they're quarantined and whatnot. So I want to hear what you have to say.
I have some ideas as well. I have 3 primary ideas that I want to share with our listeners.
Okay.
And they're all different genres, so there's something for everybody. And they mostly are from Amazon Prime, which is, a lot of people have Amazon as a option for watching stuff.
Right.
So the first one I want to talk about is Shetland. So Shetland is a sort of a police procedural mystery series.
It's not a pony?
No. There are Shetland ponies, but this is not about them. It's not about them.
Enough of your jokes.
It is set in the Shetland Islands, which are north of Scotland, and feature amazing scenery, lots of cliffs and beaches and beautiful rolling green hills, and there's some great emotive music in the show. So it's sort of visually and auditorially nice to watch. It's pleasant to see. It is easy to watch. But the stories themselves, the first 3 seasons, which are really just 2 episode seasons, are based on Anne Cleeve's novels. And they are mysteries, right? There's a murder and they're trying to figure out who did it. It's a classic whodunit kind of show.
Right.
But the later seasons, season 3, 4, and 5, are longer format. So they're around 6 episodes each, and each episode is an hour. So if you watch the whole thing, all of the seasons, it's around 30 hours of TV. And the later seasons are more involved stories because they have longer to tell the stories. Mm-hmm. So lots of twists and turns and interesting characters. And if you like mysteries, I highly recommend Shetland as something for you to watch.
Yeah, mysteries can be formulaic for me. I mean, Kim and I recently went and saw Knives Out. There was a mystery movie that was written and directed by Rian Johnson, who did The Last Jedi. And the movie was a good movie. Like anything, because of the show more than anything else, my critic hat is usually always on, so I do nitpick a lot of stuff. And I think with my issue with Knives Out was like the ending was a little contrived and the acting was a little too cute. But what I mean by that is like Parker Posey, it's just I am this person, and just over emotive and whatnot. But you can't beat a good mystery. I mean, because even Doctor Who season 4, the Wasp and the Unicorn, the Doctor and Donna Noble traveled back and met up with Agatha Christie, and there was an alien that was turned into a bee, and it tied around an actual historical event for folks that don't know. But Agatha Christie, once she found out her husband was cheating on her, she disappeared for a few days, and then when she reappeared, she didn't know where she was. She had temporary amnesia. And what the Doctor Who episode did is kind of tied, the whole bee, the bee person into that, and said it was because, she was recovering from that. So, good episode there.
Well, Shetland has some really great acting in it as well. The main character is played by Douglas Henshaw, who, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
The name sounds familiar.
As soon as I saw him in this, I was like, what else has he been in? Because he's amazing. But of course, I can't remember right now what else he's been in. I could look it up real quick.
I can look it up. You go on with your next note.
So really great acting and beautiful scenery, great music. It's a great show. So that's my first suggestion is Shetland. And as far as I know, it's not available on Netflix or Hulu. It is available on Amazon. It is not available on Prime. So it is one you would have to pay for at this point, unless you can find someplace that it's offered for free, which I'm unaware of. It has been in Prime and it has been on Netflix over the years, but it is not currently available. But it's worth it to buy the seasons, particularly in standard definition, because they're a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, and it's like I remember when they finally released the old Batman TV series from 1966 onto digital platforms, and they had an HD version and a standard def version.
Right, why would you buy the HD version of that?
Yeah, it wasn't filmed in HD, so right. I don't need to see Adam West makeup or anything, but Douglas Henshaw, it looks like he's primarily based out of England, so a lot of his work has been with stuff that hasn't necessarily seen the light of day. Here, it looks like he was on an episode of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and he was in the Anna Karenina TV show in 2000. Stuff like that.
Yeah, he's great. Okay, so second selection is comedy and is Schitt's Creek. So Schitt's Creek is on Netflix and probably several other streaming services. And it is a wonderful comedy, 30-minute sitcom that features the folks from SCTV, pretty much.
Yeah, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara. Right,
Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara. Eugene Levy's son, it was actually written and produced by Eugene Levy and his son, Daniel Levy. And his daughter is also in it. And it's the story of a family, a very, very wealthy family who owned a VHS movie store empire, and whose bookkeeper stole a bunch of their money. And so now they're broke, But Eugene Levy's character happened to have bought a town while they were still super rich. And it's the only thing the government doesn't take away from them for tax evasion is this town. And so the family moves from their giant mansion into the motel in this little town called Schitt's Creek. And then the rest of the seasons, there are 5 seasons, are all about their adventures and misadventures trying to adjust to life in small town with no money. And it is hilarious, very funny, also poignant and sweet in those ways that sitcoms can sort of draw you into characters, and you care about them and you care about their relationships, and that happens with that show. So
yeah, I've seen a couple episodes. Not my cup of tea in terms of humor. I do love Catherine O'Hara. I mean, she's one of those folks from SCTV that should have had a lot more work than like the Home Alone movies. And I'm sure people are screaming now, she was in Beetlejuice. I mean, she's done a lot of good work, but she should definitely be bigger. And I believe too that they follow the same kind of format like what Christopher Guest did with like Spinal Tap and some of the other. Isn't it like they have a lot of it the dialogue like improvised? I mean, they have like they have the premise set and whatnot, and they know their bullet points, but it's kind of improvised, like Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I'm not sure how they do that actually. I hadn't heard that. But.
Yeah, and it would make sense if they do that, because again, with Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara's work with Second City, I mean, Second City is, prides themselves on, their improv, and that's how we got Saturday Night Live, all that stuff, blah blah blah. But
yeah, for sure, it definitely feels very fresh. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear that.
Okay.
So that's my comedy pick, sort of sitcom comedy pick. And then my final pick is a historical drama. This one I'm pretty excited about. It's a masterpiece production through PBS and the BBC. And it is the completion of Jane Austen's uncompleted work that she was working on when she died, called Sanditon. And Sanditon is the story of a seaside town
called Sanditon?
Called Sanditon in England.
I got it.
And it's your classic pre-Victorian seaside getaway with bathing machines and, where you're actually where you're bathing in the sea with clothes on. And
that woman is showing an ankle. That's inappropriate.
Right, walking along the seashore is the entertainment, and just a quieter time. And it was actually, so the novel is unfinished, the story was unfinished, and it's been finished by tons of people over the years and published. I've read a couple of those, and they're usually terrible. This one is similarly terrible in that it's not Jane Austen, and it absolutely veers from Jane Austen, what a Jane Austen story would be. It was finished by Andrew Davies, and definitely has that more lurid, modern approach. So there's more sex and more nudity and oh my, than there ever would have been in a Jane Austen, actual Jane Austen novel. The most they would ever do in a Jane Austen novel is kiss.
Emma doesn't whip out her boobs, no.
Yeah, no, Emma never would whip out her boobs. But there's some boob whipping outage going on in this in Sanditon. So, if you're into that sort of thing, if you're into the
boobs,
you call the heaving bodice of the historical romance, there's a little bit of that going on.
Okay.
But it's long, so it's great for binging. I think there are 6 episodes of it, of an hour long each, so it was a pretty long story. And if you like historical scenery and clothing, and to some extent manners, you will probably enjoy it. It's not going to be your favorite. It's not going to be your favorite Jane Austen for sure, but it is definitely worth watching while you're quarantined.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point too, it is tough to kind of step into another author's shoes and kind of create something new while staying true to that the original work. I think of like, what is that, Seth Graham Greene, who did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies type of deal, which that was fun for what it is, but also too, like, there was an author who was commissioned by the Mario Puzo estate to write sequels to The Godfather. And the books were okay, but what he ultimately ended up doing, and I think that's what anybody in those shoes, no matter the author or the subject, was essentially putting like chess pieces in place to kind of fit into the already established story, instead of growing the characters or whatever, because you can't, Mario Puzo's dead. You can't grow Michael, you can't have Michael Corleone do something completely different. And the tendency for creators in that sense is to have them so rigidly the same that why watch it when you can always go back and watch the original.
Yeah.
So what a glowing recommendation on my part for that show. But anyway, speaking of Austin,
hey,
what a great segue.
That's a great segue.
Yeah. As we are recording this, today is March 16th, and wrestling fans have essentially co-opted this day and made it Stone Cold Steve Austin Day. Because his big catchphrase, Austin 316, and whatnot. But I thought I would, since I had a lot of fun last time, we recorded talking about a wrestling storyline, talk about some of my favorite Stone Cold moments.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, his big heyday was in the 90s, so, while you were in law school, I was, or probably just after that.
Yeah, no, I was in college and working in the 90s. I didn't go to law school until 2002, but...
Oh. But still, you were doing far more important stuff than I was.
I was not paying attention to wrestling. Let's just make that clear.
I was. So, I mean, the first big moment was the moment in the 1996 King of the Ring where he coined the phrase Austin 316. He had a match against Jake the Snake Roberts, who had recently made his return to the then WWF at that time. And, in the past he had issues with substance abuse, but now he was back and quoting Bible verses in his promos and everything. But the finals of the tournament, Austin beats Jake the Snake Roberts in the ring, and then he goes. The WWE had this set where they had like a throne with a crown, and Austin didn't do anything with it, but they interviewed Austin as like referees were leading Jake back, and Jake was struggling, and then Austin was just looked at Jake and just gave this great promo of, you sit there and you thump your Bibles and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. And like, wow, just people didn't talk like that, in promos, because you think about up to that point, a traditional wrestling promo was similar to what you saw Hulk Hogan do, which was just scream, 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 say your catchphrase, and then go to the ring. There was no real nuance to it. Now, granted, you had people like Ric Flair. You put a microphone in his hand, he's going to do something crazy. Talk about Space Mountain or something like that. Then you got like Dusty Rhodes. The second most recognizable athlete in the entire world. The American Dream could always be great on the mic, but for the most part, they were formulaic. But hearing Austin on the mic, he had a way of continuing with that because he was still following beat by beat. He had bullet points that he wanted to say, but it felt more natural coming from him. So you're like, I was studying, I didn't care. I don't care now, but that moment was great. I think of the time that it was announced that Mike Tyson was going to be the special guest enforcer at WrestleMania 14. Vince McMahon called out Mike Tyson to the ring. It was live on an episode of Monday Night Raw, and he goes, called him out, the baddest man on the planet, because Vince, a typical showman, he had if you've heard Vince talk, you would know he can talk like that. But Tyson came out, then out of nowhere, Stone Cold's music hits, and then Stone Cold comes out. You get a bunch of WWF officials that were trying to chase him and get him in the back, and then Austin gets in the ring and starts just bad mouthing Mike Tyson left and right. And Tyson's like, I'm just here. What am I gonna do? And then there was a moment where Austin was like, and if you don't understand what I'm saying, I got a little sign language, so here's to you. And then it gave him the middle, like the double bird. Then Mike Tyson shoved him, and then it was like chaos in the ring, pandemonium. That was actually shown on like Sports Center, one of those weird and wacky moments. And it led to WrestleMania 14, where they build it up to where Mike Tyson was supposedly supporting Austin's opponent, Shawn Michaels, in the match, but Mike Tyson turned on him and helped Stone Cold win that match.
Of course he did.
He did, because of course. You were going to say something?
No, I was waiting for the of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But there's that. There was the time when it was the Monday Night Raw before the 2001 Survivor Series in November. And it was the culmination of they had this horrible storyline, because in real life the WWE purchased their competition. WCW went out of business, so they bought the tape library and brought in some wrestlers. Then another company that was popular at the time, ECW, went out of business, so they just hot shot at an angle to where there was an invasion, but they really screwed it up because they brought in like a bunch of people for WCW that nobody really, the general mass casual audience, nobody knew who they were, because when you thought of WCW, you thought of someone like Ric Flair. But Ric Flair was at home collecting a paycheck from Time Warner, because the big stars in WCW were given different contracts, and it made no sense financially for them to get that contract bought out for pennies on the dollar, so they screwed that up. But what happened at the Survivor Series, they had a 5-on-5 tag team match. It was an elimination tag team match. It was the Alliance versus the WWF, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin was a bad guy at the time, and The Rock was a good guy, and they were captains of their respective teams. But this brilliant thing happened to where Stone Cold came out and proceeded to talk to The Rock, and then they started to sing. Yeah, because Stone Cold's like, I see the tension between us, and then he started singing a country song, Delta Dog, what's your flower?
Delta Dawn.
Okay, Dawn.
Delta Dawn.
I thought it was Delta Dog.
No, definitely not Delta Dog.
Okay. But he started singing that, and then The Rock and Stone Cold at the end of that segment sang the chorus to Margaritaville.
Oh,
But the brilliant part was when they were done, everybody was cheering in the audience. The Rock, immediately, went from being happy to, but I will never forget, and then gave him his finishing move and whatnot. And it was brilliant just watching two people control the audience's emotion. I actually missed work that day because I didn't want to miss that. And finally, when Stone Cold Steve Austin met Booker T in a grocery store.
Booker T from Booker T and the MGs?
No. Booker T the wrestler. Yeah, Booker T. I don't know the specific reason why they were at a grocery store, but what happened is, I guess Booker was looking for Stone Cold, thought he saw him, but it turned out to be a different guy, and then, Stone Cold behind him, opened up a beer, but then started attacking Booker T, and then just throughout the entire grocery store, just like, they destroyed that store. To the point, like, they got to the baby aisle. At that point, Booker T was so beat up, Austin had him in a cart, and then, took, like, baby powders, little baby need a diaper, type of deal. And then, at the end, they had, like, a sound effect of, like, cop cars coming, and then Austin, made a dash for the exit, and then he walks out, price check on a jackass. But wrestling is goofy, wrestling is fun, but it's escapist fare, it's fun. So if you are a wrestling fan, I hope you enjoyed your Austin 316 day.
Yes. Happy Austin 316.
You're like, what did I sign up for? Anyway, it is now time for our album of the week.
Which, Austin, is another great segue into the album of the week.
That it is. We are going to be reviewing from Jomo and the Possum Posse, their latest album, which was released this past November, called Take a Number, Satan. I first heard of this band in 2012. I was working at Best Buy at the time, and I was in the back at the Geek Squad area at the time, and one of the managers came in, and we had a couple people back there, and he was like, "You gotta watch this," and then he put on this video of Guy on a Buffalo, and my God, I laughed my ass off. It was hilarious, and I recently showed that to you. What were your thoughts when you saw it?
I thought it was one of the funniest things I had ever seen, and I thought to myself, this has got to be the greatest band in the world, possibly ever, that has come up with this soundtrack, essentially, to a 1973 or 78?
70 movie, yeah.
Yeah, late 70s, called The Buffalo Rider, and took that footage and sang songs to it,
repurposed it, and just, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch Guy in a Buffalo. I mean, Kim hates it, but she's not a fan of country music, period, and I just don't get how she can hate it, because just the violin that opens it up each and every episode is, I mean, that gets me. The lyrics to Guy in a Buffalo, I love. I mean, to me, I love how improv it feels, but it wasn't improv. I mean, they may have had bullet points, and they may not have been like reading it from a lyric sheet or anything like that, but there was a lot of effort to make it seem like that they were just coming up with words at the drop of a hat. But after I showed it to you, I went to Spotify and saw that they had a new album out. So I thought we would give it a listen. The previous week, the last week, I did put a poll up on Twitter, and they won. I mean, granted, I added them. I didn't think they would necessarily respond, but they were excited about the poll, and I guess a lot of their fans went and voted on the poll, which is why they ended up winning in a blowout over Marvin Gaye, Public Enemy, and Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was pretty tough competition, and they definitely came out on top. But
as you'll hear when we go through it song by song, I definitely recommend you folks give this album a shot. You will not be disappointed. It's one hell of an album. But like we always do, we're going to go through track by track. We're going to give our honest opinions up or down, whether we liked it or not. As always, we acknowledge that our opinions are just that, our opinions. We still urge you to support these artists, especially when you have a group like Jomo and the Possum Posse. They're a smaller band, so any support you can offer them is going to be beneficial. But let's go through it.
Let's do it.
All right, track number 1, Styrofoam. What were your thoughts?
I love this whole album, really, and I love this band. And so this song is kind of demonstrative of some things that I love about them. First of all, it was a rockin' tune with lots of classic riffs and instrumentation. The backing vocals were perfectly right on. It feels like just a great 1950s sort of rockabilly anthem, and then the lyrics are amazing. So the song is set apart by its really funny lyrics, very tongue-in-cheek. So you get this sort of classic sound with an interesting new twist, which is sort of what the band is all about. And they do a great job in that first song. It's a love song, really, and it's about how all that garbage that lasts forever, like styrofoam and six-pack rings that last forever, are descriptive of the singer's love. So it's an amazing song.
Yeah, it is. My notes: nice, simple 12-bar country blues. The lyrics are hilarious, but so on point with a fun, upbeat love song that you can enjoy the song as a song. What I mean by that is, it's not like a Weird Al Yankovic
Right.
song to where,
Yeah.
it's like a joke, ta-da type of deal. I mean, I could see people listening to this song and essentially missing the point, because it's almost like a Fox News conservative love song in a lot of ways. We'll show them libs, but just the lyrics are really on point. I mean, like like where he mentioned, I love the little critters, but I'll straight up murder them all to show I love you, type of deal. And just the groove. Just the groove. I mean, what you'll find in this album is that the music itself is more of what I call functional, and what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have like a 20-minute solo on any particular instrument. It's just the music is there to uplift the lyrics and give it more emotional resonance. But when we first heard it, we were dancing, and it just got this nice groove to it. There's a video for it as well. They kind of made their claim to fame with their videos is they take open source public domain video footage and kind of edit it, and they took a bunch of old recycling PSAs and made that into the video. But it was really, really well done. All right, the next track, like.
Another love song, and I really love this song as well. It's got a great play on words, and that conversation that you always have with people that you're interested in. Do you like me? Or I really like you. And they say, yeah, I really like you too. No, but do you like me? Like me?
Yeah.
Is sort of what the song's about. And so again, it's a mellower song, more of a ballad, and I enjoyed that myself. I prefer more of a ballad than more super up-tempo song. So I really like this song.
I did as well, and it's great. It's great at poking fun at the English language because, to your point, I mean, in the English language you have love. Whereas, in Italian, there are many different words for love because there are different types of love. When two people first meet and they fall in love, it's great when they can say, I'm in love, but their type of love is not the same as someone that's been married for 50 years. That's a different type of love. Or the type of love you would have for a family member. That's a different type of love. Where, in English, is just love. So it was great at kind of having fun at that. And again, the music, one reason I'm not a big fan of Weird Al, I recognize that he is a great musician, but it's just a lot of times the music is subpar. And to me, for what Jomo and the Possum Posse does on their albums, the music is so good, it actually elevates the humor in the song. And that's what I really liked about it.
Yeah, they're really like the Gourds in that way, and I think the Gourds have been a influence on Jomo and the Possum Posse, which makes sense because the Gourds similarly have really amazing musical chops, but are able to make really funny songs.
Yep. All right, next track. Well.
So this is the shale oil fiddle hoedown, basically. You definitely get there's great fiddle in this song, and it's all about the shale oil boom and bust. It's got some colorful characters from Texas going up to, I guess, North or South Dakota to work in the shale fields, shale oil fields, and the misadventures that ensue. So, I really like the song, and I like that it's about something that we don't think about, something that's in the news, but that really is kind of an incredible cultural thing that has happened in the shale oil fields in the North Midwest, western part of the United States, that we don't pay enough attention to on an ongoing basis. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. The bass at the beginning of the song, for the longest time, it sounded familiar. It sounded like, it was inspired by a different song. I did play the opening bass part to Kim, and she thought it sounded like the Billy Joel song "Tell Her About It," the doom 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 before the fiddle kicks in. But yeah, I definitely like that. I loved the fiddle work from Jomo. The lead singer is the one who does that, and that really shined on this particular one, and just the bass throughout. I mean, the bass. It's simple, and what I mean by that, is this. You have bass players like John Entwistle or Geddy Lee that can fly up and down the fretboard, and then you have bass players like a Paul McCartney that boom, 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 what you think of traditionally with a bass player. But the bass player, Brian Wolf, did a really good job on this track as well. But really, really good song.
Really great song. Yep.
The next one, Brian's song, not that one.
So funny. This song is so funny. Again, it's more of a ballad. I think they did a great job on the album, sort of alternating sort of musical feelings. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a barn burner with the Well, Well, Well song. And now Brian's song is a little more chilled out, a little more subtle, a little slower. The music was really great and catchy. This is one that I will hum to myself just randomly, and has this sort of somberness. So what's going on in the song is the guy has heat stroke, and he has a conversation with someone while he has heat stroke, and this song is sung from his perspective, and so it's pretty serious business to have heat stroke.
Yeah.
And he's really feeling in love with someone. We're not quite sure if it was a hallucination or if it was a real person. So there's a somberness to the music and to the story that's being told. Like, if you really think about it, like, oh, this poor guy with heat stroke who ends up in the ER. But the music itself, or the lyrics themselves, are so freaking funny that you're basically laughing at this poor guy's pain, and just it's a great listen to this song.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote, who would have thought you could have a successful ballad about a guy that has visions from a heat stroke? I mean, and this is another showcase of how great the music itself is, because it elevates the humor of the lyrics, because you're all in for it to be a country ballad type of deal, but then you're paying attention to the lyrics, and you're laughing your ass off. It's one of those deals that you could have a slow dance with your partner while still laughing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard the song, and it's totally that. But in all of these songs, you're 100% all in for the music, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, they're having a little bit of fun with me.
But yeah, really great track. And the next one, Annie is a Chicken Now.
I'm going to let you talk about this song because I know that you really, really loved it. It's probably my least favorite song on the album. It just has a frenetic sort of energy that it just turns me off. It's just too much for me.
Well, and you're talking to a guy that loves metal and whatnot, so I do love that faster paced, and there's a cat right outside the window. It's just like, what's up? He was attacking somebody. It's like, whoop, bird, whoop, bird. Is it going to kill anything? No. Now it's licking itself. Okay. But Annie is a Chicken Now. My favorite song on the album. I'm always partial to give songs with Annie in the title a listen because of a character I created for my book, Annie Walker. But just the tempo on the song, how it starts slowish and then just builds and builds and builds, and you're all into it. I do remember in the Casey Musgraves album review where I said, the only person that should really be permitted to play the banjo is Kermit the Frog. I take that back. Because the guy who played the banjo on this song, Jess Clifford, I believe his name is, just knocked it out of the park. I mean, again, he's not necessarily like the Eddie Van Halen of banjo players, but it's fun. It's just you put this on and you can't help but smile and be. This is like an audio version of coffee. Mm-hmm. You know, you put this on, when it's done, you're going to be up and ready to go. And you know, I would love to see an audience react to this as well. And I believe I know they have some concert footage of playing songs from this album. I'll have to do a little digging, and if I find it, I'll put it on Twitter and the YouTube page. But I would love to see what an audience reacted to this, because I think this could be one that, you know, the audience participation in terms of just dancing alone would be great. But I definitely loved it.
I love reviewing this album with you, and it's just occurring to me why, maybe, which is that I'm from Tennessee. These boys are from Texas. And they're historically and culturally, there are a lot of similarities between Texas and Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I'm from East Tennessee and the Appalachian Mountains. And so I grew up with...
I love how you said Appalachia.
That's how people from Appalachia say it.
The people in Michigan would screw it up.
So, you know, I grew up with this kind of music, like this, and there are several, like, stations that I hope are playing Jomo and the Possum Posse, including WDVX and WNCW, which are local radio stations that play this kind of music. Yeah. And this is, I think, this sort of alt country with the old time feel is very popular where I come from. But like you being from Michigan, and you're sort of just discovering or rediscovering country, and
really I'm discovering it because, I mean, part of it, as I've said on the show before, I mean, if you grow up and your parents love a certain kind of music, your first inclination is going to be not to like that. And also Grand Rapids, in terms of the radio stations that were out there, any country station was just, you know, it's a Toby Keith marathon, and it's the
here comes Brooks and Dunn.
Yeah, and Casey Musgraves
I know,
love
right?
that song. But it's for the longest time I said I wasn't a country fan, but it really, what I'm discovering lately in terms of digging deeper into country is that my issues with country are the same issues I have with, like, rock music, with, you know, hip hop, is that the more corporate it gets, the less passion it has, and this has passion. I mean, just the level of detail, the lyrics alone have, as well as the music. I mean, because to your point, yeah, this is traditional country music, but it has a modern sensibility to it. You know that, you know, these are just musicians at the peak of their craft putting out some great work, and you know, that's what I'm loving about, you know, diving into country. I'm discovering bands, you know, like Jomo and the Possum Posse, Old Crow Medicine Show.
Yeah, Old Crow Medicine Show, which I think feels a little similar to Jomo and the Possum Posse in terms of the instrumentation, but also just the energy of the songs.
Yep. And just, yeah, I mean, just realizing that there is good country music out there. You just honestly have to dig for it, you know. I mean, because I think Tyler Meehan Coe in Cocaine and Rhinestones kind of mentioned that, you know, with the types of country music stations that, you know, I grew up with proliferate the country, you know, for the most part. So it's the, you know, what Nashville thinks should be, you know, presented as country is usually what most people get, and that's a turnoff. Don't let that be a turnoff. Discover, you know, dive deep, because there's good country music out there, and this is part of it.
Absolutely. And I know that WDVX, which is out of East Tennessee, has a live stream internet radio that you can absolutely listen to, and they feature music like this day in, day out. Yeah. For people who are looking to discover more things like this. And
if it's on iHeartRadio, our show is also on iHeartRadio, so hey, plug for that. But yeah, anyway, we'll go to the next one. Sleeping in the Weeds.
All right, this is the story of Adam and Eve, pretty much. Mm-hmm. I'm allergic to religious things, so I was not that into it, and I don't know why I started talking with a southern accent all of a sudden. Mama. I mean, I think it's a great song. It's not one that I would put on a compilation if I was pulling like my favorite songs from the album. But it's just a classic retelling of the Adam and Eve story.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, with any album, not like if the Who put out an album and every song was trying to be "Won't Get Fooled Again," you're going to get bored. You know, you have to have some variety up and down. Sometimes songs are created that aren't necessarily made to be the greatest song ever, but it's made to kind of carry you over to the next song. And that's what I kind of felt with this. It to me, it kind of had a weird... It felt like Charlie Daniels singing a Johnny Cash song. Because I know Johnny Cash with his songs, from what I've heard, it's not the most, in terms of his lyrics, he doesn't, he's not like Bruce Springsteen in the early 70s, looking up at the thesaurus and trying to create a novel out of his song. But with a Charlie Daniels band, he's kind of a more verbal type of singer. But I kind of loved the marriage between the two, and just the tempo, again, how it picks up and builds over the course of the song. Again, I to your point, I would probably agree too that this is probably not one of my favorite songs on the album, but I don't get the impression that I think it's a bad song because of that. It's if you're walking with earbuds in, this is great to have on.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, next one, Down Like You Do.
I really like this one. It's got a great groove to it. It's more of a blues inspired song, I think, and it starts with his girlfriend killing his pets and him sort of saying, "Why you keep killing all my pets?" Which is, it just gets funnier from there. It's a love song, right? It's like I get down about things, but I never get down about you, my lover. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a sweet song, but it's
about a woman who murders
about a woman who somehow killed all his pets. She does all kinds of bad things, and he just accepts her for who she is.
Sounds like me during my marriage, but hey. For me, I put for the guitar work that opened the song, it's dirty, filthy, and beautiful. The vocals have kind of like a fuzz to it, but it's a fuzz that you would expect if you were like in a dirty club and they were singing. It's that vibe that I really like. And I also wrote too that if Miami Vice was set in Texas, this song would be on the soundtrack for that show.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because it just nice, just by dirty and filthy guitar, I mean that in the best possible way. Just one of those, just you picture your best girl dancing to this, and you're going to have some great thoughts.
And it seemed like there was some interesting effects on the guitar throughout the song, different pedals and stuff.
Yeah. And again, I mean, for the vocals too, as I mentioned, it kind of a nice fuzz, type of fuzz you would get like from a smaller speaker or something like that. But throughout the album, they don't do too much in terms of extra effects on the vocals. But the fact that they did that here, really well done. All right, the next song, one of my favorites as well, Nailed It.
One of my favorite songs on the album. It's got a very catchy tune. I mean, this one you'd be humming along with for sure, and it's got a surprise ending. So
no spoilers.
And I really loved it.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, the lyrics alone are worth the price of admission. I love the line, "Yeah, I was a jock in high school. Now I'm just slightly older."
Yeah, I'm just slightly older.
Things like that. And also, too, how he perfectly captures the feel that men have. Because the first part of the story of the song is where he's in a public place, he's with his girlfriend, and he's asked to tell her what her birthday is. And, he's like, I believe it was like January 19th, or I forgot the specific date mentioned in the song, but the way he kind of tails off, like, "Is it this? I nailed it! Yeah!" And how you just celebrate, and it was great.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing to say about the this album and the band in general is that they're pretty much all story songs. And so if you like a little story with your song, then you would really like these guys.
And that's what great artists do. I mean, even someone like Frank Sinatra. I mean, he interpreted each song that he had as if he was telling a story. He was that character telling you the story, like one for my baby and one for the road. How many people have lived that? You know, he certainly lived it throughout his life, you know, like his tragic marriage to Ava Gardner, for instance. But he was able to, you know, channel those emotions into telling that story, and that's what made you relate it. You know, similar to Jomo singing this song, you know, that how he trailed off with the birthday and that I nailed it. Yes, I did. Just, it reminded me of the opening of the episode from The Simpsons, I Love Lisa, where, you know, Marge brings a special plate of food for Homer for breakfast. You know, here's food for your very special day. And he goes, special day? What is it? Is it Bacon Day? No, don't be ridiculous. You better take a shot. Happy Valentine's Day? Yeah, thank you. Woohoo! So, all right. The next track, Committed.
Yeah, so this guy, again, it's a little bluesy, and it's a play on being committed to an institution versus to a person, and how maybe they're a little similar.
Yeah, I can say that from experience.
So great concept, and you know, it's an upbeat song that is got a dark side, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I noted that the opening of it sounded like it could be, it could be on the soundtrack from Dusk Till Dawn. You know, Robert Rodriguez, who wrote and directed that movie. No, he didn't write it. Tarantino did, but Rodriguez directed it, and you know, he's also a pretty great musician as well. But he grew up in Texas too, so they share a lot of the same, you know, musical. They have to share a lot of the same musical, you know, things growing up. But it sounded like that. The harmonica was really good. I mean, it was simple, and again, what I mean by simple, he's not like John Popper from Blues Traveler, who can go.
Thank God.
I like him, but the harmonica was really good. I mean. It wasn't like Bob Dylan lazy. It was like Bruce Springsteen from Born to Run type of harmonica, but just better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because I guess you know, and I've seen it in some of the concert footage for Jomo and the Possum Posse. For the harmonica, he has the same getup that like Dylan and Springsteen had. I don't know what they call that little device that holds the harmonica on their chest while they're playing guitar.
Harmonica holder.
Sure, but being able to make it sound good, it's harder than it is. I mean, I used to play the harmonica. I haven't played in years, and you know, I probably should start playing again. You know, if I had a partner that played, you know. But I for one know how hard it is to make a harmonica sound good. You know, it's easy to pick up, but it's hard to master, and they did a really great job.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, the last track on the album, You Need It.
Now we come to my favorite track on the album, and as you've heard, I really like most of the songs on the album, so this song was special to me. It's the kind of song that when I hear, I want to read the lyrics and see if I can find the chords, and it was such a beautiful song about our society today and what we think is important versus what is really important.
Yeah.
And the opening lines of it are talking about Old Faithful in Yellowstone and how they put up a new water feature in Yellowstone. It goes off every 5 minutes and has a lazy river next to it, because people don't want to wait an hour to see Old Faithful go off. And it reminded me of, the song really reminds me of my trip when I drove cross country and went through Yellowstone and saw a buffalo and all kinds of
coincidentally
memories come flooding back for me. It's an acoustic song. It's got amazing harmonies with the female singer and Jomo, and is
Betty Sue. Unfortunately Spotify doesn't have like liner notes, so it didn't have the name members of the band, but doing some research I found out her name was Betty Sue.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Betty Sue, beautiful voice. The harmony was really great, and there's some whistling, and I like a song with some whistling. There's some nice melody whistling going on in the song, and I just from start to finish just absolutely adore it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually not a fan of albums that kind of end on a slow note, because a lot of times it's not done as effectively as it should be, and a lot of times, when you end on a slow note, it kind of peters out. It did not in this case, because even though it's kind of a slower ballad, it still has just the same level of passion that they had for the other songs, and yeah, I mean, it's the harmony. If you're gonna listen to this song, you're gonna love the harmony. Jomo and Betty did an amazing job on this particular song, and really brought they brought the emotion. They brought the emotion in just a beautiful, low-key way to end this album.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yep. So again, Take a Number, Satan is the name of the album. Highly recommend you check out Jomo and the Possum Posse. I mean, whether it's, streaming some of their songs on a music service like Spotify, most importantly, I recommend go to their website, buy their albums. I mean, this album was just released this past November. They have it in CD. They have it in LP. I'm
super excited to maybe order it in vinyl.
If they're listening right now, they're like, maybe.
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely going to order it in vinyl.
But definitely check out this band. Wow. I mean, I was amazed at how much I really love this album.
Yeah, and just to think that it was the guy on a buffalo that made it all possible for us.
Yeah, I mean, I what I suspect and what they would probably say is that, for the guy in the buffalo, they had over 14 million views, or I believe at this point 30 million views on collectively on all of them, but that did not necessarily translate to everybody going and listening to their albums and whatnot, which is a crime, because they deserve it. If you are someone that doesn't like manufactured country music but still love a good country song, give them a shot. You're not going to be disappointed. So,
absolutely, and I'm so glad that we both really enjoyed this album.
Yeah, Kim missed out.
She really did.
Yeah, but that brings us to the end of another episode.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Sure does.
Yep. Which. The next two times you're going to be on the show, your choices will. You're like, are you sure I'm going to be on this? It'll be your music choices at that, because traditionally what we try to do is alternate. But the fact that Jomo and the Possum Posse were so excited about promoting the poll in terms of helping it win, I had to get it on right now, just as a way to not only thank them for promoting the show, but just thank them for putting out
making such great music.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kick ass. But our next episode is going to happen this Saturday. It is episode 100.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yay!
Yeah. We already, Aubrey and a special guest, already recorded part of what episode 100 will be. Episode 100 is going to be a long one. In the show notes for episode 100, there will be definitive timestamps, because I don't expect anybody to, just plow through it all in one sitting.
Unless you're driving somewhere far away.
Then definitely
it'll be a very good road trip episode.
It will. But I'm definitely excited. I mean, this show has... in a lot of ways, this has become like an audio diary of me, from day one till today. I mean, there's so much, good and sometimes not so good, unfortunately, that has occurred during the life of this show. But, being able to get through 100 episodes and kind of have it capped in as beautiful a way as it did, was definitely an experience. But, you're relatively new to the show. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Just about the show?
The show in general, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's when I first met you, I went back and listened to a lot of the show, and it definitely has changed over time, and there are different sort of eras of the show, all of which are sort of beautiful in their own way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really cool to have something that you've done for long enough that you can experience those changes over time. And
yeah, any artistic endeavor, over time, if you do it for as long as we've done this show, is going to change. I mean, it better change, because if you keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're not going to be able to get that much of an audience. But, being able to switch podcast hosting companies allowed us the freedom to record as much as we want and release it whenever we want, and I think switching to having a definitive format instead of just talking about one topic really, did the show wonders in terms of replayability, in my opinion too, which is not in any way knocking the older shows. You talk to any, like the South Park guys or the Simpson, creators, they're gonna, be very critical of their early years, but that is what it is. It's just, critique being a critique, critic being a critic, blah blah blah. But anyway,
blah blah blah.
Blah. Almost having a stroke here, I can barely tell. But with that, another one's in the books. We will see you folks Saturday for our extra special 100th episode. Hooray.
Hooray.
And remember,
it's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. You always make each day such a special day. You know how? By just your being you. Only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. I'll be back next time. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.